Hey, I just got back from lunch. Did you finish that report yet?
Well, not exactly. Still working on it. I'm not finished just yet. I got a little sidetracked, but I will get them to you first thing this afternoon.
It is first thing this afternoon.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, I am working on
But
it. I'll have,
what do you mean that the report isn't finished yet?
I'm still in the process of working on it. I've just been a little distracted.
Distracted. Our meeting starts in an hour.
I can have it.
No. What were you doing? Were you listening to another hunting podcast again? I swear, I give the staff in this office the freedom to do whatever they want to do as long as they meet a deadline. That is the first bullet underneath your job description. Pays attention to detail and deadlines. And deadlines. With emphasis. Dude, are you even listening to me right now?
Welcome to episode 78 of the Whitetail Distraction Podcast. My name's Austin, and joining me via Zoom, Charles Hedlund. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, buddy. What's going on tonight?
Just hanging out, man. You know, doing a little editing, having some fun. It's almost turkey season.
Dude, how about the weather, though? Honestly, how about the weather? It's
Man,
been freaking amazing.
It's been unreal.
Yeah, is this June or is this March? I don't know.
I saw a bee today.
Dude, I just killed a mosquito. That's what I just attacked across the room. I just killed a mosquito. I got bit today.
Unreal, man. Unreal.
Middle of March, and we got mosquitoes. Now, we are supposed to get a bunch of rain, and it's supposed to cool off for only about a day or two, though. So, and it's going to bounce back next week. Beautiful in the 60s.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking next week I'm going to be out listening for turkeys in the morning. I don't know about you.
Pretty soon here. I don't know if I'm going to quite do it next week, but pretty soon I'm going to start hitting it before work, going out.
Yeah, I remember last year I was going out really early. It's like it was either March or even maybe February. It was early, cold, and those birds were just gobbling their heads off still.
Yeah. Well,
it felt really early. I guess now, I mean, our season's like April 30th, I think.
29th, I think.
29th, something like that. It's a Saturday, right before an opener in May. And, that seems like an eternity away, but I've been getting turkeys on my trail camera.
Yeah.
And I also, another note, I have not seen a deer other than a half rack spike in the last 10, 15 days. And those deer look pretty big.
Yeah, there's, I don't know. I've been seeing similar kind of, but I've also been seeing some people that literally there's actually some pretty significant deer that's still holding.
Yeah, I got probably 5 or 6 pictures waiting on me for after this intro. I get to look at them from my cell cam.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, I think the trick is if I look on the mobile app, it's not quite as clear. I have those 5-point cell cams.
Right.
Not quite as clear, so you can't really tell what a shed buck is. You can see the size of the body, and that's kind of what I'm going off of. If you go online and look at your account, it's a little clearer picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to try to do that and see if I can't pick up any antlers or something. But as far as I can tell, man, I think it's almost time for me to hit the woods and do some shed hunting. I got to get in turkey season shape, like I told you before we started.
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. I went out once, kind of not really a very long trip. I took Logan out with me. We went for a little walk, found some sign. Found 2 like really, really significantly large scrapes that are still open that were still getting hit. So marked those on OnX. That was a new area that I hadn't been to. So that's pretty cool. Didn't find a single shed, but I got some areas I want to hit yet. A lot.
Are we the world's worst shed hunters?
Buddy, I don't know because like you go out to like the Midwest and stuff like that, and those guys find like, I don't know, 30 in a day, and then around here, I don't know, I can walk 20 miles in a weekend and not find anything. Like, I don't understand. I know there's deer there.
I think
I might find one.
With our tips, some of the tips that we've gotten from our buddy Trev, I think we need to take him up on that, what he was suggesting, and hit some of those areas that we never thought about before.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see if we can't get our shed numbers up. It's fun to find sheds, but at the same time, if you're looking in places that you don't hunt personally, I don't know. It's weird, because like me and you, we go shed hunting, we go shed scouting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
So we're not really in it to find a lot of sheds. We're in it to find a lot of sign, and that's when we do our best scouting. So if I'm shed hunting a property that I'm not hunting,
Yeah.
there's no point in that for me personally. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the lines with it. I mean, I do like to hit new areas, and it is almost a scouting trip. If I find a shed, that's a plus. I consider it shed hunting, but it's more scouting for me. I mean, I like to find them. I haven't found a ton of sheds, but, I'd like to find more. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like, say there's a little wood lot behind a industrial building that you really can't hunt, but there's deer there. We could go shed hunt that property, but we're never going to hunt it.
Right.
Right. So at that point, I just don't see the point in doing it other than just to find sheds. And, Pennsylvania, we have some big deer, but I don't know. I don't think we're going to find any 58 to 80-inch sides anytime soon.
That would be impressive for sure.
Be pretty cool if we did, though.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
We need a shed dog, man. We need to start training our dogs to find sheds.
Oh man, that would be awesome. Though, I mean, Trev, he's been finding some match sets and stuff with his dog. He's been tearing it up, buddy. Some really big sheds.
I was finding antlers like he's finding. I guess my attitude would probably change.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of dogs and training dogs for hunting purposes, who's our guest tonight?
Ooh, I like that little transition there, buddy. We have Shane Simpson.
Yes, sir.
Calling all turkeys. The dude's a freaking animal. I love this guy.
That's right, man. Yeah, check out his YouTube page. It's just under Shane Simpson. I know we shouted out a couple times, but he really does hit it all with calling all turkeys, public land whitetails, and then the Cali Chronicles with his dog, like I just mentioned. Man, he's got a really fun YouTube channel, and he's really pumping out videos right now too that are pretty good. He's still dropping turkey content, and I'm sure he's out there probably pretty soon here, right?
Yeah. I would think he's probably out right about now, isn't he? I don't know if he was going to Florida. I know he was going to Louisiana, New Orleans, and then I think he was hitting Alabama possibly. I can't remember exactly.
Which I think starts like this weekend, so something along those lines. So good luck to him, man. And what a fun episode. We can't thank Shane enough for coming on and sharing his turkey knowledge. This guy is an absolute stud in the turkey woods and turkey calling.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I had a blast talking to him, and I picked up a couple things, and I picked up one of his calls, which is awesome. I'm excited about that, and it's gonna be great, man. I'm excited. Let's get him on.
All right, guys, we are finally into some turkey content. We are sitting down tonight with one of the greats, Shane Simpson, out of Minnesota. This guy is just slaying turkeys all year long, always traveling state to state, hitting a whole bunch of states up on what seems to be very short trips because he's just knocking down turkeys left and right. And he's here with us tonight. Shane, what's going on, man?
Let me correct you. I'm not turkey hunting year round. I'm no poacher. But I do turkey hunt for several months in the spring and occasionally in the fall. I'm going good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I guess it seems year round because you're dropping video content all year. Of you dropping turkeys.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're enjoying some really good content, some really good new videos.
Appreciate it. I'm about to run out though, but I'm getting ready to start my 2021 season here shortly, so I'll get some new stuff going.
That's right. That's awesome. And just to touch real quick, you do have a YouTube channel under Shane Simpson, and I mean, you got to go on there and check that out. You got basically the way I break down your YouTube channel, and you might break it down the same way. You got calling all turkeys, public land whitetails from 2020, and then the Cali Chronicles, which is really awesome with your dog and the blood tracking and the work that Cali does, which is really cool too. Does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, that's when people ask about my channel, that's how I describe it. There's several playlists. There's a couple other playlists, but those are the three main ones: the public land whitetails playlist, Cali Chronicles, and calling all turkeys. And so if you want turkey hunting, you got it. If you want deer hunting, you got it. If you want deer recovery, that's in there too. And a little bit of other stuff, but mostly just deer and turkey.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
So why don't you do just a quick introduction of anybody that may not know about you, just a 30,000 foot view.
Okay, I was born and raised in South Carolina. Moved up here. Well, let me back up. Born and raised in South Carolina. My parents sold their property when I was young, so I started hunting public land. Piddled around with videoing my hunts back then. When I was like 14, I bought my first camcorder. It was big shoulder-mounted VHS camcorders. Moved up to Minnesota in 2008. Got into competition calling. Started hitting that pretty good. Looking for people up here to let me tag along and film their hunts because Minnesota has such a short, at the time had such a short season. You can only, kill one bird. South Carolina, we could hunt, a month and kill 5 birds. And so I was looking for ways to extend my season up here. Started putting those videos on YouTube so the people I hunted with could see their hunts, relive their hunts. Started getting subscribers. Next thing I know, however many years that's been now, I've got a full-fledged kind of YouTube channel for a show and a little bit of variety there. So that's kind of the summary of my life. A lot of details missing, but that's the gist
a
of
lot in between. Huh?
Yeah. Boy, if life was just that, it wouldn't be worth living with it.
Oh man. Well, like Chuck said earlier, man, we love your channel. And one of the things that he also mentioned is, calling all turkeys. And I kind of want to just jump right into turkey content right off the bat. And we might touch on a couple of things other than that later, but it's almost turkey season and you're going to be hitting several states this year. I think you mentioned 8 or 10. What's kind of like your starting point when you want to go and start scouting turkeys? Maybe digital scouting, maybe Onyx. What's kind of like your starting process for that?
Obviously, I got to decide where I'm going, and a lot of that just is determined by when that state opens. I like to get started as early as possible, and I look at like South Florida or Mississippi or any other, or even like Nebraska with the early archery. I'm just looking to get started, and then I'm looking for states that extend my season, like Michigan. I'm able to hunt into June if I draw the proper tag. So I guess that's the first places I start is where am I going, which state, and then I start looking at okay, what properties are available. I don't necessarily just hop on Onyx and start looking at where they have public land marked. I'm also looking on the DNR or whatever the Wildlife Division website to look at other types of public land that's open. Like in Wisconsin, for instance, they have what's called VPAs, voluntary public access. It's private landowners that open up their properties, and that changes from year to year. I mean, it can be public one year and then close the next, and new properties open. So I'm looking initially, what are the property types I can hunt, and then I may dive into Onyx and see where those properties are located, or even the DNR website. They'll have an interactive map a lot of times. And I have different terrains that I like to look for depending on the state I'm going to. Sometimes I'm looking for just timber or hilly timbered areas. Sometimes I'm just looking for creeks, especially in western states, South Dakota, Nebraska. I'm looking for big creeks or small rivers that have trees, cottonwoods growing along them. Those typically have turkeys. If I can find some public property that has that, then I kind of target those. Here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, I'm not afraid to go target smaller properties just to bounce around. But in most instances, when I'm hunting out of state, I'm looking for a large chunk of property that gives me plenty of room to roam or plenty of options as far as if this part of the property doesn't have birds. I have lots of pins dropped where I think I may find turkeys based on the topography or if there's creeks. And, I'm also looking for different types of wood types. Like there's a grove of pines here meeting up to oaks and a clear cut, just different habitat diversities. So there's a lot of different things I'm looking at. And then also, where's the big cities? I try not to pick public land near developed areas that maybe draw people after work or before work or on the weekends. Those places that are a little bit more out there away from major cities or some of the mid-sized cities, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense no matter what species you're hunting. Just to get away from the cities, you're always going to get away from pressure a lot better there. And that stands true in almost every state as well. Even the ones that don't get a lot of pressure, you get near a city, you're still going to find pressure. And like Illinois, if you get close to Chicago, you're still going to find pressure, So I think that's a good idea. Now, looking at the logistics, and this is kind of a perfect time to talk about this for you because you're only weeks out from making the trip. I mean, what's your preparation looking like gear wise, the logistics that go into, how long you're going to stay at each state? Do you set yourself a time frame, or do you just kind of know the order and then the time frame kind of creates itself?
Well, I usually plot on my calendar a set time to depart for that state, to when I think I'll arrive, how long I'll stay, and when I'll depart and go to the next state. If I'm hunting 2 states back to back, like this trip that I start off, I'll start in Mississippi and I'll end up in Florida. Because I'm hunting the northern part of Florida, or the northern zone, it's split into two zones. The south zone comes in earlier, like a week or two earlier. So the south zone will already be in. The season will already start when I start hunting Mississippi. Even though I'm scheduled to hunt till Friday and arrive in Florida on a Saturday or Friday night and hunt Saturday, if I do well in Mississippi, let's say the stars line up and we feel some tags the first couple of days, I'm not opposed to hopping in the car and heading on to Florida early. I already have a tag and everything, and maybe jump on to South Florida to some of those WMAs there and just get an early start in the next state. But I usually kind of plot it out. A lot of times my schedule dictates how long I'll be somewhere or how long I have. Because I work a 3-day on, 4-day off schedule at work, those 4 days, like Iowa, for instance, I allot those Monday through Thursday, for instance. I may say, okay, I'm going to go to Iowa and hunt those 4 days. If I tag out that first day, then I have 3 days left. And so I always try to schedule backups. Last year we went to Iowa, and me and my buddy, we both filled our tag the first day. So we hopped over into Minnesota and I filmed him, hunt Minnesota. But I typically give myself on the longer out of state trips at least 4 to 5, sometimes a day or two longer than that at each location, and then move to the next one. I try not to, if I'm traveling more than 7 or 8 hours, I try not to hunt less than 4 days at that spot, just to give myself time to learn the area. And, if you're going to drive 8 hours somewhere, you don't want to turn around and come right back the next day. The days where, although I did that years ago, I left work on I think a Friday night. I get off at 11 o'clock. I was working second. And I drove through the night and get to my spot in South Dakota at daybreak and hunt Saturday and then Sunday morning, and then drive Sunday evening back home and then get up and go work Monday.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's back when my schedule at work wasn't so conducive for traveling turkey hunter.
Yeah. Are you working remote as well, so you can stay down in the South for an extended period of time?
No. I'm using vacation time. I save my vacation for turkey season. I know a lot of people save their vacation for deer. When deer rolls around, if I don't have vacation left, which is not uncommon, I'll either, like I went to Nebraska, North Dakota this past year, I either swap with a coworker to try and move my days around to where I can get 8 days continuous.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I'll take a week off without pay if I've got enough money saved up, but I try to not do that.
Yeah.
That's rough on the bank account.
Yeah.
That's last case scenario there.
Yeah. Worst case. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore, man. And it's funny that you say that. Most guys do save all of their time for deer hunting. I think you might be the first person that I really have talked to that saves all of their vacation time for turkey season. That's hardcore, man. I love that.
Yeah. I've got 4 weeks scheduled for spring and 1 floater week that I'm trying to save for deer season. But if I get in that turkey hunting mode, I mean, like get really into it, I may burn that 5th week.
It's not hard to do. I mean,
It's
the season and turkey season comes first too. So it's like if my vacation restarts first of the year, right? So turkey season's kind of the first season that comes up, and I end up usually blowing a lot of days on turkey season. And come deer season, I'm like, man, if I just didn't have that 1 or 2 days that I was chasing that one gobbler back in the spring, but
yeah. With that said, I am using a week. We're going on vacation. My family is the week prior to the start of Mississippi. We're going to New Orleans to kind of sightsee and do that thing. So I am using a week of non-turkey hunting related stuff, but it's, I guess it's worth the sacrifice. You got to keep the family happy a little bit so I can travel and turkey hunt.
Heck yeah. When you want to do 8 to 10 states in a year, that's a lot of time away from home, and that's tough for sure.
Oh, it's tough for them, not for me.
Yeah, well,
don't let them hear that. They won't listen to this podcast.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was definitely referring to the other side.
Yeah, about midway through the season. Haven't you turkey hunted enough? When do you need to?
Yeah.
You know, I go out there. Well, as soon as I fill my tag, I'm coming back, and that means I come home early. Oh, it'll never happen. My luck, you'll be the last day before you fill your tag.
Yeah. My thing here is like, when I finally do kill one, it's like, well, you already killed a turkey. What are you still hunting for?
Yeah.
I got a second tag.
Right. Well, I got another one. I got a buddy that needs to kill a turkey.
Oh,
I
remember some phone calls home. Hey, I just filled my tag, and she doesn't want to hear about the hunt. The first thing she says, "Does this mean you're coming home?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe. Do you want to hear the story of the hunt?"
Oh
great.
man,
I just give her a hard time though.
Yeah. Well, she must be a good woman because to do what you got to do, you got to have the right woman. That's for sure.
Yeah, she is, and but also she knew what she was getting into. I made it abundantly clear before we started this relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She is a good one.
No, I love that, man. Now, you did mention that 8 to 10 states, man. What states are you planning on hitting this spring?
Oh, let's see. The for sure states are Mississippi, Florida, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Nebraska. I'm waiting for word on the Michigan draw. Did I miss a state somewhere? And then I may hit PA. I think there's 9 states. I may have missed one somewhere, but Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, possibly PA, Florida, Mississippi. So that's kind of the primary ones right now, or the for sure's, and then the possible PA.
That's awesome, man. Which one are you most excited about?
I don't know. I'm excited if I do get PA. That'll be a new state for me.
Awesome.
I haven't hunted PA yet. Michigan was fun in June last year, and I'm looking forward to trying that again. I am entertaining the thought of hopping across to Wyoming and Montana. Wyoming's tag is very affordable, and if I'm gonna be out in South Dakota, a few hours away, I may just decide. And I haven't finished buying my tag, so usually I have my schedule, filled out and completed, and I know and finalized by now. But this year, I'm still kind of tweaking it. It just depends on how things are going. I may hop over to Wyoming and Montana just to add 2 more new states. I'm not trying to, hunt every state that has huntable populations, that U.S. slam. I just try to fill if I have a free day, I'm trying to find a place to go to fill a tag, or to hunt rather.
Yeah.
Even if that doesn't mean filling a tag.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, you come from the state of South Carolina, you said, right? I've recently heard that, the 2 hardest states to hunt turkey in the South is Alabama and South Carolina. Would you agree? South Carolina is a pretty tough state to hunt.
I haven't hunted the southern half in a long time. The last time I hunted there, the southern half or the low country seemed to be much better than the upstate where I grew up and hunted. Now, the upstate in South Carolina was great. It was some of the best turkey hunting in the state. And for whatever reason, the population just took a huge decline. The last time I hunted there, I was lucky to even hear a bird gobble.
Wow.
So it was drastically different than what it was when I was growing up. The lower part of the state, the low country, I hunted it not a year or 2 prior to my last time I hunted upstate, and the hunting was still pretty good down there. We were hearing gobbles. We were getting on birds. Alabama, I've only hunted one general area of Alabama, and the hunting there was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I've got buddies that have gone down there and done well. So I can't say, based on me and my friends' experience, that Alabama's a tough state to hunt.
Maybe there's just a bunch of people from Alabama that are all coming together to make it seem like it's a really hard state to hunt. They just want to keep everybody out.
You know what they say? Everyone's personal home state is always, if you can kill a bird there, you can kill a bird anywhere. That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
South Carolina, is my home state. I used to think it was a pretty good state to hunt. Now it's gotten tough. I don't know if it's Arkansas tough. I haven't hunted Arkansas, but everyone says that. It doesn't matter who you are. They always say that. And it's just because the lack of birds there, their population has really taken those down.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now we're actually gearing up. Myself and a couple other buddies. We're gearing up for a trip this year out to Oklahoma. We're going to chase some Rios around in circles and see what we can do. You ever hunt out there out west?
Yeah, Oklahoma is a fun place to hunt. And I actually thought about going back this year. I was actually going to go to Texas and hunt and maybe hit Oklahoma also. The Texas trip got canceled, so I just scratched the Oklahoma off of that, and I'm going to try and do it next year. Man, if I had the time and money, like anybody that turkey hunts, I'd go every state I could, just to hunt every single day of the season. But I don't have that luxury. I am fortunate; I get to hunt more than a lot of people, so I'm not taking that for granted. But there's only so much I can do in a season of my free time, and that got scratched, unfortunately.
So how do the Rios compare to an Eastern? I mean, I've only ever hunted Easterns in my entire life. PA, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, right here in our little circle. So how are the Rios compared?
The Rios to me are very similar, and the Miriams are very similar in their mannerisms and the way they act. I think in general, Western birds are easier to hunt. And yeah, you're going to run into a bird that doesn't want to come in the call, and they may not be readily callable, but they're much more vocal than an Eastern bird or Eastern subspecies. So even if they won't come to your call, you can get them to gobble. You can roost them. You can set up tight, and then the next morning you can keep tabs on where they're at because of the willingness to gobble throughout the day. So in that regard, it's easier. It's also usually there's open terrain out there where you're hunting, so you have the advantage of seeing them from a distance and deciding to make a move, use the terrain or whatever. But sometimes those can be some stubborn birds to call in, where Eastern will come running in as soon as you make one yelp.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll just gobble and go the other way, or they'll just hold their ground. So that they have their pros and cons. But if I had to give an overall rating, you're going to have likely have easier time killing one of those birds as opposed to an Eastern, especially a timber Eastern.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot different for sure. I'm going to just bring out like regular Eastern decoys. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Turkey's a turkey. I mean, you see all the variations of people posting pictures of white turkeys, or it looks like a royal, whatever those domestic turkeys that got loose. They recognize them as a turkey. They don't care what color they are.
They don't care if they're fit.
I will say this: that their gobbles sound a lot like a farmyard bird. So when you hear that, you're like, oh, it sounds like the neighbor's got a turkey pinned up. No, that's a Rio or Miriam.
Now, you grew up with a turkey, right? I heard a little story how the turkey used to chase you around and chase your brother around until your brother got wise and slapped the turkey upside its head.
Yeah, I just talked about that had a recent podcast and we discussed that. Yeah, I used to raise turkeys. I was always fascinated by them, and most of them were domestic turkeys. But I had a buddy that had a wild gobbler, and he gave it to me. He was tired of it. A car had hit a flock come around the curve in the road, and they were staying in the road, and slammed on brakes, slid off into the ditch, and one of them got injured and was pinned in the car, and they raised it. I don't know what the legalities of having a wild turkey back then, so I'm sure the statute of limitations is over.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I was a kid, man. Anyway, had a wild turkey gobbler, and he was a mean little son of a gun, and he would chase me. I tried to feed him. I'm like, get back, quit trying to flog me. I'm trying to feed you. And I have a twin brother, and he would come over, and the gobbler would chase him too. And my brother got fed up with him chasing him all the time, and he just reared back and smacked him upside the face, open hand slap. And that gobbler like shook his head and was like, whoa. And, from then on, he was afraid of my brother. And every time he'd come over, the gobbler was still afraid of him, days, weeks later, but he'd still try to attack me. And I'm like, man, how does he know the difference between us? I was like, let's do a little test. So we went in the house and we changed clothes. I put on his shirt and pants and shoes and hat, and he put on mine, and we walked back outside. And we're identical twins now. So, I mean, most people can't tell us apart unless they've known us for, a few years. Anyway, we walked outside, and that gobbler went straight to chasing me and running from him. So it's like he could tell the difference in our faces, even though we're identical twins.
That's crazy, man.
Just wild story.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the trigger for me. Like, oh, I bet if turkeys can tell a human face apart, they can recognize each other by their facial features. Even though I can show you a gobbler and then show you another gobbler, and then later bring them out and say which one's gobbler A and which one's B. You'd never know. But I think they can pretty quickly pick up the differences and recognize a gobbler by their looks and their voices.
Yeah. I wonder if that has to do just with their keen eyesight and just the way that they're built. But it's pretty amazing. And I wanted to go. I kind of got off track there with that story, but I thought it was funny, so I wanted you to tell it. But getting back to like the out of state theme and the reason I brought up Oklahoma, it's like, we're going to be spending a pretty short time out there, and it seems like your trips, like you said, 4 or 5 days. How do you get on birds fast? And especially while, like you always mention, you'd like to move slow through the woods, right? But you end up getting on birds pretty fast, getting the job done fast most of the time. So what's your tactic there of getting on them quick on a 4 or 5 day hunt?
Well, I mean, if I'm going out west, it's a little bit easier to pinpoint a turkey because they have only a few areas they can roost. Trees are limited, especially the areas with trees are limited. So, you can use the shadows on like Onyx or Google Maps or whatever you're using. You can use the shadows of the trees to determine the size of the trees a lot of times. So, I already have an idea where I think is potential areas they'll roost. And I'm looking for cottonwoods, for instance. And, I'll get there. If I arrive in the afternoon, I may just concentrate on riding around looking at the area and trying to roost birds, coyote house, whatever. And out there in the, open terrain, the west and stuff, southwest, the coyote howl carries forever and a gobble carries forever right back to you. So you may hear them gobble from a mile away or more. I mean, it's even possible to call. I've called a bird in from 0.9 miles away. I just dropped pins on where, it was one of my South Dakota hunts. And I measured it after the fact, but he was 0.9 miles away and I called him in. So, I mean, being able to reach out there with loud locator calls, cyber scouting ahead of time, picking potential roosting locations. If I'm out west, I don't normally hunt so slow like I do in timbered areas where I just take it slow, move methodical. Out there, it's open. You can see much farther, so you can make quicker decisions and quicker movements to get from A to B.
Yeah,
I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that makes a lot of sense for out there now. Like you said, you're going south, thicker timber, maybe a little bit more hills in the terrain, creek bottoms, whatnot. You're just trying to get down there. You've already scouted. You're getting to high points and maybe locating using you like the coyote howl. I know you use that quite often.
Don't be afraid to sacrifice. A lot of people get there and they think they have to hunt. My Michigan hunt, for instance, I could have just blazed through the night and arrived there before daybreak and, to hunt that first morning. But I had 4 days there, and I didn't want to fall asleep at the wheel. So I wasn't so concerned about getting there after daybreak and using that first day to ride around and learn the gates, learn where the access points were, see what the trees look like in person, where the creeks were, how big they were, maybe walk through the woods. And that's what I did. I walked through the woods, found scratching, I found turkey sign, called obviously a little bit, hoping to strike one. But a lot of people, I think, get to a spot and they just immediately go into hunt mode instead of let's assess the area first and stay in kind of a scout mode, dial back the hunt mode a little bit. And then once you figure out some things, then go, okay, now it's time to hunt and go full bore at that.
No, I think that's really solid advice. And, the same thing kind of goes, I don't want to take it off topic, the same thing kind of goes for whitetail when you do a whitetail hunt out of state. You always want to go in, if it's sight unseen, it's the same thing. You got to go in, you got to hunt the fresh sign. Hot sign's always going to be your best bet.
Mm-hmm.
It's solid advice. I mean,
yeah.
I listened to you talk about fresh sign on that. I think it was the same podcast I was listening to. Just as simple as a turkey track after rain, something that I know I when I was listening to it, I'm like, wow, I'm guilty of doing that. Just walking right over turkey tracks and not hunting that area. Maybe I'm working to get to one spot because I marked it on a map and I'm like, this looks good. And then I walk over turkey tracks to get there. You want to touch on just like fresh sign, and once you're on fresh sign, kind of your approach to it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's easier to tell what's fresh or not if there was a recent rain. And I've been successful on some of these hunts where I found a fresh track and I knew it rained that night. And so there was a good probability this fresh gobbler tracks, this gobbler, may still be within hearing distance. that worked in our favor in Florida with my daughter. We were walking along and there was a fresh gobbler track in like a fire ant mound or something. And I had to convince her to set up. And she was like, "Oh, really?" She wanted to go fishing. That's what it was. And I was like, "Just give it 30 minutes. We'll sit here and we'll see what happens." Well, we called in a gobbler and she killed it. Wisconsin, we had hunted all day. Well, we killed one that morning, but then we hunted all day that day. And the rain had just ended that morning when we started hunting, and we came across what looked like where a gobbler had landed on the dirt road, and was running like he had pitched down that morning, landed on the dirt road. You could see how it was scuffed up, and then he was running to slow down, and then a walking track. That was kind of the way I envisioned it. And I was like, man, that gobbler may still be around here. And so we walked and called, and we got I don't know, a couple 100 yards from those tracks and hit a call. And I probably would have set up closer to those tracks, but it just wasn't a good location to set up. It just didn't look like, a good setup to call one into. And I didn't want to set up on the road itself. And we rounded the curve and I could see it looked a little more inviting as far as a good spot to kill a bird. Called in a little bit somewhat open, and I made a call and a bird gobbled. So, all right, let's get set up. And so we got set up, and I called again and he didn't gobble. And so I was like, yeah, let's just sit here. He's going to be one of those pressured public land birds. He's going to come in quiet looking. And we waited there for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes at least. It might have been a little bit longer. And here he comes sneaking down the road looking. And he got to where he heard that last call and he just sat there and strutted, looking, strutting. He knew exactly where that location, that last call. He finally kind of lost interest and just walked into not really lost interest. He kind of broke from that little location and walked into the woods, and my buddy shot him. So, a couple of instances there that I can remember right off the top of my head where, we found fresh sign, just like you said, deer hunting, set up on it. What do you got to lose? I mean, obviously there's a turkey that's been there recently and it may still be in the area, especially if you find a gobbler track.
Yeah. Now, PA, like I can relate that to us. What we typically see a lot is you'll come up on maybe a big open wooded area with a lot of oak trees and a lot of acorns, and you'll come up and the whole thing's just completely scuffed up, tore up the whole way through. You might see, some scat and feathers, like it looks like a roosting tree there. Now, our first half of the season, you can only hunt till noon. Second half of the season, you can hunt all day. If I can only hunt till noon and I come across this maybe scouting for the season, or you can't hunt Sundays here, so let's say a Sunday. I mean, you see all that sign. Would that be something to invest in a morning hunt in, or would that be better to wait and try to catch like an evening hunt second half of the season in that area?
I hate deer hunting turkeys, and I know like setting up on sign is not a bad thing, but I wouldn't invest an all afternoon in most cases. If I find now the scratching, how recent is it? And you can look at scratching a lot of times and tell if it was just done within the last few hours or that morning or that afternoon in the poop. And don't be afraid to pick up turkey poop and just feel how fresh it is, how soft it is. Try to avoid those black mushy poops. But your typical poop is kind of like soft Play-Doh consistency. And a lot of times I'll pick that up just to confirm, okay, this is fairly fresh. It's obviously an area that turkeys like to be. Probably not a bad idea to set up and blind call for a couple hours, give it, man, I'll tell you what, I just want to do a sidebar here. When I was younger and I was hunting and I'd set up in one spot for 30 minutes, it seemed like an eternity. Now I'll set up in a location in 30 minutes, just zips by, and I'm like, oh wow, I've already been here a half hour. But that's just a little side note. I don't know why I went on that tangent. But at any rate, if you can set up and blind call I'd give it about 2 hours and see what's in the area. Obviously, it's a good spot because there's fresh sign. It may be the location you come back to the next morning before daybreak. And, especially if there's fresh sign there and the turkeys are using the area, look at the lay of the land around you and say, okay, this will be a good spot to be at as it got light the next morning. Don't just say, oh, there's fresh sign and drop a pin in that location, and then you come back in the dark and you don't know which tree to set up. So Go ahead and pick out a tree and then maybe come in the next morning. Now, are you allowed, I'm assuming you are allowed to, in the afternoon, stay out there and try to roost birds or just observe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can do that.
Do you have to take your gun out of the woods, or can you just have it unloaded and with you?
I would say
That's a hairy situation there, kind of a gray
I would
area.
keep the gun out of the woods just
Okay.
because you never know who you're going to run into.
I mean, say if I was out there hunting and I'm 2 miles deep and I just
Oh.
unloaded my gun and I didn't want to walk 2 miles out to come back in there, I guess I'll have to take that fight up with the game warden.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I would say if you were, it ends at noon. So if you were done at noon and you were 2 miles deep and you were walking out with your gun loaded, or, if you're going to sit in there all day until dark, I mean, I don't know if you would do that. That's like,
I would probably have an area I hunt and then have an afternoon spot that I want to go to scout and just go back to truck. There's another state, I think it's Virginia or West Virginia, that you can't have an uncased gun is the way the law is written in the woods after a certain time.
1:00. That is correct.
So our discussion with a buddy was I'll just take a soft case and roll it up and put it in my pack and then just put my gun in that soft case while I'm out there past 1, and then I'd be legal because it would be a cased gun.
Yeah, because you can't be in the field with an uncased gun past 1:00. Our rules aren't that strict, but you can't legally hunt past noon. So, I mean, typically what we do is just unload the guns and we walk out. Yeah, we've never had any trouble that way either. But that actually brings up, I mean, a lot of that little sidebar you did and a lot of stuff you covered brings up another question I had. Your sits, I mean, your style, would you call yourself more of a run and gun kind of guy, or would you say you do less sits with better quality sits than you do just jumping all over the place?
I'm more of a walking call
Okay.
than a running gun.
That works good. I mean,
even as I get older, I don't move as fast as I used to. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I set up in blind call just because I'm dog tired and I just want to take a break. I try to be smart about it and sit down in areas where I think I have a chance to call in a bird. And I've, after years of turkey hunting, has tuned my brain to turkey vocalizations. I can be asleep and the bird off in the distance, a faint gobble, and it'll wake me up right away. I mean, I
Awesome.
hear that. That happened in Tennessee. Drove through the night. I hadn't had much sleep. I was up late editing. I was tired that morning. Been hunting all morning, and I sat down on the hillside. The sun was warm. I was like, "Oh, this is a great place to sit." And I know I was going to doze off, and I guess I'd been dozed off for 30, 45 minutes or more, and I hear just some little soft bucks, and immediately woke up. And so I've gotten tuned for that. So I'm not too concerned about going to sleep out in the woods and missing anything. If something makes a turkey sound, I usually hear it right away. But I'm more of a long story short, I'm more of a run and gun type of person. I like to stay on the move, make things happen. But if things are slow going, I will take a chance to set up in blind call, especially if I'm kind of at a loss of where I should be going. If things just aren't working, I'm like, oh, maybe I'd just be better off just sitting here and listening for a little while and see what goes on.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Now, I'm not trying to backtrack here at all, but before, I felt like it was perfect opportunity. We were talking about fresh sign. We were talking about a couple of stories you were saying where you came across a fresh track. So that kind of brings me into my next question. Do you have kind of like a go-to locator call? I know we mentioned before you're like the master of coyote howls, and
you said the magic word.
Yeah, there we go. But do you have like that solid go-to that you feel like you almost always get a gobble off of?
Coyote howl does a great job, but I don't usually like to use that just randomly throughout the day, and especially if there's potential turkeys nearby.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of success throughout the day. If you watch anybody that's watched enough of my videos, you'll see me owl hooting on up in the morning, all up in the day. I've had a lot of success getting turkeys to gobble with that, and that's just because owls do owl hoot during the day. And I've had people say, "Man, you should be using a crow call during the day and an owl hooter at daybreak." Well, here's a news flash: owls do wake up during the day and they do hoot.
Yeah.
And I think what is so beneficial to an owl hooter is the turkeys don't hear it on a regular basis. It's not common. It does occur. It's just not common. Whereas a crow, is as soon as it starts cracking light, they start making noise and they crow all freaking day or call. And I think sometimes the turkeys just become immune to it, or it's just the monotony of the crows, and that new sound a lot of times is enough to elicit a gobble. And you can use a goose call for that. I've done that in the past. I don't try to carry so many calls with me, so I try to carry the ones I think are very effective, like an owl hooter, and I can coyote howl on a turkey call, so on a mouth call, so that doesn't require carrying anything extra. I guess my next locator call would be actual turkey calls, cutting, and I always try to follow it up with the yelp. It always seems like the cutting is the attention getter.
Yeah.
And when you end it with the yelp, that's enough to trigger that gobble. And sometimes they'll gobble on top of the cuts. And then, the coyote howls, that loud, piercing squeal of that howl is enough sometimes to get them to gobble.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And then to even keep rolling with that, you said you take calls that you feel are going to be most effective. Now, I have a buddy that just absolutely swears by middle of the day, you can't get anything talking. He has a boat or box call. It's goofy as hell sounding, and he feels like that is the one call that when they're not answering to anything else, that's what gets them strike.
Yeah, they don't sound very turkeyish.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but they're really high pitched.
Yeah.
And those are good. It's a real big bulky call.
Yeah, right.
Me personally, nothing against box calls, but because I think they sound fantastic. I hate carrying them because they're just bulky, and if you don't get them something in between the lid and the paddle, or the rails and the paddle, they're gonna squeak and make turkey noise. I mean, I can't count on my hands how many times I've been with somebody and they've had a box call, and as they're walking, it's "Eek." And I'm like, dude, if you don't quiet that box call, we're gonna toss it through the woods. See, honestly, I wouldn't do that, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't carry it either. That brings me to another point I've heard you mention. Like, I have zero confidence in my ability with a box call. I must be the only person in this world that cannot work a box call with any kind of consistency, because I swear I start on that thing. It takes me like 3 or 4 hits until it finally starts sounding right.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't take that. I know I have enough confidence in a mouth call that I can make it sound right off the bat, but a box call, I don't know. Even a pot call, I sometimes use it, but I kind of live and die by the mouth call personally.
Yeah. And I'm just not, I mean, I'm okay with a box call. I mean, but I hear some guys and watch some guys running pot call or box calls, and they are phenomenal. They're doing things on there that I didn't even think possible, until I saw it, some of the cutting and yelping and stuff. And so I won't dismiss box calls as being great calls for mimicking turkey vocalizations. I just don't like the bulkiness.
Sure.
Is the main reason.
Yeah.
And I'm an amateur at box calls. I know how to slide the lid back and forth, and I know how to pop it to make a cluck. That's about it.
I guess that makes sense. It's like anything else you do. If you don't practice at it or do it enough, you're never going to get really good at it.
Yeah.
And that's where I stand too.
Yeah.
But, going back to like owl hooting in the middle of the day and some of the locating calls, I know you've mentioned before too, like realism is your thing. Like, you want to be sounding as real as possible when you're in the woods, leaving as little disturbance as possible out there. And that's something that's big with you too, like making sure that things sound real. You think that, or you believe that affects positively or negatively how kind of your hunt's going to go. Does that sound right?
Well, I think there's benefits to realism. If you're on social media and someone says, "Hey, anybody recommend an owl hooter?" I've seen this 100 times. The responses are, "Oh, you don't need just use your natural voice."
Yeah.
And I just roll my eyes at those answers because, it's going to save you carrying a call out there. But most people are not going to be able to reproduce realistic owl hoots. And they'll say, well, you don't need to sound realistic to get a bird to gobble. No, but there's benefits to being realistic. Most people just think, I make a loud noise, he's either going to gobble or he's not. And I'll give you an example where it's benefited me to be realistic. I like to sound realistic, number one, so hopefully other hunters don't hear me. I know that can come in a bad way if you get one to gobble and they hear you owl hoot. It's like, oh, a real owl got a bird to gobble. If you fool that hunter. I think most people can tell I'm using an owl call, but I just don't like people to know where I'm at when I'm trying to locate. I'd like them to think I'm a real owl. But the point I was getting to is I've been on hunts where one in particular was South Carolina, just the one I always recall, is I was owl hooting that whole morning trying to get one to gobble. I'd made some turkey calls. I couldn't get anything to gobble. And this was on up in the morning. Sun was up in the sky pretty good. And I made some owl hoots. Nothing gobbled. But because, at least this is what I believe, my owl hooting was realistic. I had an owl that was 400 yards away start hooting back to me. And then I heard a gobble. That gobbler was 100 yards from that owl. He didn't want to gobble to me because I sounded so faint, but because I was making realistic owl hoots, I got a real owl to respond that was located near that bird. So the realism in that regard played to my advantage. Where if somebody just went out there and said, "Whoo," and didn't get a gobble, a lot of times that real owl would have not even responded to that person. So it does have its advantages.
Unless it's Ric Flair, woo.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, I've heard that. I've heard that happen multiple times where you call and then an owl answers and then that owl's like right next to the gobbler and then the gobbler then he sounds off. That happened last year with us up my camp in the big woods because a lot of times too, with the hills and the way they play, our sound probably didn't carry over into that next valley down. But since that owl was kind of down in there or up in the trees there, when he called, he struck down into the valley and then it sent off a bird down there, which was pretty neat to see.
He's closer, so he's a little bit louder. But
sure,
I mean, it doesn't always work. I mean, case in point, in my recent Wisconsin video with me and Catman and Garrett Prawl, the DIY sportsman, we had a field gobbler and I owl hooted down the woods and he gobbled to it and it triggered a pair of mating owls come up and start responding to me, and they didn't gobble to it. And then I owl hooted a little bit later, and he gobbled to it. And Catman made comment about that. He's like, "Man, he really loves that owl call Shane using. He didn't gobble at the real owls, but he gobbled to him." And so it doesn't always work to your advantage, but it's nothing wrong with triggering real owls to respond and get more more hunters out there locating, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can't glaze over the fact that, I mean, maybe not now. I don't know. Did you compete in owl calling or was it just for turkey calling?
I only done the owl hooting divisions at Grand Nationals the last couple of years.
Okay.
I what was it? I tied for second the year before, and I tied for first the past, which would have been last year. They didn't have it this year because of COVID.
Okay.
So for about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, I was tied for first in the nation until we had the call off, and then I lost in the call off. So I was Grand National champion for 10 minutes, or co-champion.
I would take it. That's a half a gold for sure.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
My goal when I started competition calling, and the reason I got it wasn't a goal. I remember when I was younger and I saw the Grand National Calling Championships, and I was like, man, it sure would be cool to be up on that stage one day. But there's no way I'd be able to get up there. And it wasn't because I was just too shy at the time. It's like, there's no way I can get up in front of all those people. And I outgrew that, and thankfully, and into 20, let's see, how many years later would have been? Gosh, 25 years later, I'm up on the stage taking gold trophies home. Where it's just, when I was a kid, I was like, man, it'd just be cool to be up on that stage. And here I am. So I'm thankful for that.
I bet when you first started off, there was probably more nerves going on your first couple years calling in that competition than maybe any gobbler standing in front of you.
Oh, I'll tell you this. I'm much more nervous at one of the local contests, the small ones, where there's only 8 or 10 people in there watching. Grand Nationals, because they have all those bright lights in front of you and you're up on that stage and the crowd's kind of tucked into the darkness, you don't even see anything out there. It's like you're looking at a black screen of the bright lights. And as long as you don't make eye contact, because you can kind of see some of the people out there, don't make eye contact with anyone. I usually just kind of stare at an object that's not crowd related, like the timer, or just look into space. Yeah, I was much more nervous at the local ones than I was there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And those local contests will get you rattled more than sometimes a gobbler in front of you.
That makes total sense, honestly.
Yeah, that would be tough. I don't think I could ever do it. I'm not a good caller at all, but I know I've heard other guys say, when they first started calling competition, I mean, it made them a better caller too.
Yeah, it definitely made me a better caller. I posted a video on social media. It's been several years now, but I had clips of me turkey calling in like 2008. Just snippets from Hunt from '08, '09, 2010, and on and so forth. 2009 is when I started competition calling, and you can hear a slight improvement. It wasn't until like 2015 or 14 when I discovered the air channels and how to properly run a mouth call that you see the big jumps from 2015 to 16 to 17 where I actually sound like a turkey. So from when I was 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 30 something, I sounded pretty much the same, just a typical person trying to run a mouth call. And then once 2009 and 10 rolled around in the competition, you really see the improvement. And I practiced every year prior to that. It's just I wasn't practicing in the correct way, listening to turkey audio, paying attention how to change things on my turkey calling.
So, Shane, I do want to cover like your Instagram, man, because your how-to call videos on there. I mean, some of your turkey memes are absolutely hilarious. But
I've been slacking in that department lately.
Yeah. Well, I went through there a little bit today, just trying to get some information, and I'm like, man, I missed all these how-to call videos. And you kind of cover like you cover a lot of calls there. I know you cover them on YouTube too, and you just recently posted a video, the 8 minutes, 8 different calls, I think it was.
Yeah, that was the videos you're referring to on Instagram. Those were actually on TikTok. Okay. Catman got me started on TikTok, and I called him up one day. I was like, thanks a lot for getting me hooked on TikTok. But
I love TikTok, man. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I got the first day I was on it, I spent most of the day on it. I was like, I got to put this thing down. Anyway, yeah, there's some funny stuff. I know there's a lot of trash on there, but there's a lot of funny stuff on there too, especially if you follow a lot of fellow hunters and stuff, and they're posting stuff. But long story short, they limit your videos to 1 minute, and so I was trying to throw some tip videos on there. And it's hard to create a tip video in 1 minute.
Yeah.
And so I had to think real carefully what words I wanted to say. And so I would post those 1 minute TikToks. I would share them on Instagram. And then I decided to collaborate them all together and put them on YouTube. So it's basically 8 of my TikTok calling tips. So that's why they're in 8 minutes, because they're all 1 minute clips. So
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to get better at calling, I feel like you do a really good job of kind of breaking down how you do the call from the root of the base of the way you start that call. And then you kind of work into the actual call. I think that's really cool. It's helped me out over the years as well. And I think that's something that people should head over and definitely check out on your channel.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what I tell a lot of people is that, turkey call wasn't invented to be a turkey call. It was invented as a bird call, so bird watchers could mimic, Tweety birds and songbirds and do whatever. And we've kind of adopted it to make turkey sounds. And because of that, I'll always explore what can a mouth call do. A coyote howl on, I can do loon calls. I've even practiced doing crow calls on it, and I've gotten a somewhat rough rendition of a crow on a mouth call. You got to get out of your mind that, okay, to whoever's marketing this call, they say, oh, it's capable of doing this and that, and you think you can just put it in your mouth. But better yet, look at it as a musical instrument. And, you got your several reeds. One reed is producing one note, like your second reed, is the one right below the top reed. It's uncut. It's producing that clear front. And then the top one does the rasp, most of the harsher sounds. And so think of it as keys on maybe a trumpet or a piano, and treat it that way. And once you learn how to control the different reeds, then you can make the music that you want. What I would suggest to people is learn to control that uncut reed, the one that gives you that clear front note, because that's the foundation for all your calling. You can do your keys, you can do your little whips and whines, your little soft yelps. You don't even need a top reed that's cut to do this real soft, under your breath kind of yelps, a little. So, I mean, it's a musical instrument. Treat it like that. And once you get the foundation of controlling that call, you can get it to do pretty much what you want it to do with enough practice.
Yeah.
That's the key word, with enough practice.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing. I was listening. I think there was a podcast you and Catman were on with with Zach and Zach Fehrenbaugh, and Catman actually mentioned it about flipping the call over in your mouth and making like the key, and you can do like soft stuff with it. So I was curious enough today, pulled the call out, started calling on one end, and it's like the raspiest batwing call that I have. And then I flipped it over and I'm like, wow, I can purr, it's crazy.
That's just all in how the air goes. So when you're blowing a turkey call, the air goes between above your tongue and under the call. So it's going below the reeds, basically. And that's why the reeds are staggered. The top one is out the farthest, the middle one, and the bottom one's the shortest reed. It's so air can hit all three. Okay. If the top reed's recessed, it'll never vibrate because air is not going across it. Air passing, it's simple, like aerodynamics, air going across the bottom and there's nothing going across the top produces low pressure, and it causes the reed to want to move towards the low pressure. And then because of the elasticity of the reed, it springs back. And so that's why it vibrates. So when you flip your call over, now your longest reed is out the farthest and it's blocking. Your other shorter reeds are back and not getting any air. And so now you're basically I should take that back. It's not necessarily that it's, you're taking the rasp away. It's because if you go watch my mouth call mechanics video, this will make a lot of sense. Their airflow where you're at. So now that you have a call where you can get rasp on, now you flipped it. Now it's moved it to the other side of your mouth where your airflow is not necessarily at. Now you're on the area of that reed that's not got the cuts in it. And so you're able to do different sounds. I mean, I can take a turkey call and call on it, and I can flip it over, and I can't get any rasp at all. All it is going to be, just clean stuff. So, yep. and that's kind of the reason I just wanted to touch on. That's why that's happening.
Yeah, I thought it was neat because I can almost carry one call and do a few different things with it now that I never knew before. So
yeah, it definitely changes the sound if you want to just flip it over and produce a different hen, or maybe Jake yelps on it. Something like that, or get a
that's kind of what I was thinking, and almost make it sound like two different birds calling to each other. I can kind of do like a kiki or a whine from one with some soft clucks, and then flip it over real quick and answer with a raspy old hen, and kind of make it a scenario. So we're getting there towards the end, and one thing that we love to do with every guest is we want you to reach back in your memory book and come up with, one of your favorite stories. If you want to share one of your favorite hunting stories with us, it could be anything, man. We also like to spring this on our guest and not tell them ahead of time.
Yeah, because that's a good idea, because now I got to sit here and think a minute. Because there are some instances where I have some really good stories. And when is this going to air? Because if it's going to be 2 weeks out, I'll tell this story.
I can make it 2 weeks out. Will that make it a little bit easier?
Well, I'm gonna post my Michigan hunt soon, and this is a recent one that that I think's a really cool hunt.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna record an episode right after you. I will make yours 2 weeks out.
Okay, all right, yep. All right. So viewers, you can thank them for holding off so I can tell you this story, because hopefully, if you haven't watched the video, go back and watch it. So yeah, and I early when we were talking, I wasn't going to tell you this, but anyway, I went to Michigan to hunt, and the first day I found turkey sign, and I actually thought I heard one drumming, but I never got on any birds. At sunset, I was frantically trying to locate a bird to have somewhere to start the next morning. And I had, 3 or 4 spots marked out, and I was going to my last spot, and I stopped at one other spot just to get one to gobble, and nothing there. And I'm burning up time now because, every spot I got to get the camera out there and get it set up and hit record. So, I'm filming a hunt. I got to get footage of this. So instead of just hopping out of the truck and hitting owl hooter or coyote howl and then moving to the next, I'm wasting time. I get to this last spot, still haven't got a bird to gobble, don't know where to start the next morning. And I hit a call, and it's dark. I mean, it's 30 minutes after sunset. I mean, it's pretty much pitch black, and a turkey gobbles. And, so I didn't even have the camera on because I didn't think I was going to get the gobble. This was the last spot. So I turned the camera on real quick, tried to get him to gobble. He wouldn't. Swapped to a coyote howl from the owl hooter, and one behind me gobbled 100 yards from the road. I'm like, oh, a different one gobbled. So now I had a starting point in the morning. Long story short, I go in there the next morning in the dark, kind of pinned where I thought he was going to be. I'm telling you the whole hunt, but I go in there the next morning, walking in pitch dark. I can see just the shadows of the tree trunks, and I'm bumping into trees and trying to feel my way through the woods because I know I'm pretty tight to this bird. Starts getting light. I get set up where I think I should. It starts getting light, and he gobbles, and he's 80 yards away. And so I'm in there pretty close. Now I accessed this little gravel road, and across the road was another little wood lot, and then a kind of a field. Both sides of the road were public, and the bird's gobbling, but the one across the road is gobbling, but he's like 300 yards away. The bird on the limb, he's gobbling well to my turkey calling. I couldn't even get him to gobble to an owl hooter that morning just to confirm where he was at. He only started gobbling when I started turkey calling. I knew the chances of me calling this bird in were pretty good. If he's answering turkey calls and not gobbling to other sounds, he's interested. Well, he pitches down, and instead of pitching down and coming towards me or landing out in the woods, he soars right by me and goes out towards the gravel road the way I walked in from. And I'm like, what in the world is he doing? Where is he going? And so a few minutes go by, and I call, and I hear a gobble. And I'm like, oh, he landed out there in that field. He's going towards that other gobbler. And I'm like, well, this hunt's over. So I turn my main camera to me, and it's facing at me. I got my little action camera off to my right. It's filming over my shoulder and pointing in the direction that gobbler was roosted that morning. And I'm scratching my head. I'm looking at my maps. I'm telling the viewers on the camera what my thoughts are and where I should probably go next and how I should go about, my next strategy. And as I'm talking, I move my hands. You can see in the little action camera in the woods, a dark object moving through the brush. And out steps at 25 yards this gobbler right as I'm lowering my hand from talking. I just look over to my left, and I'm going to have to bleep this out of my footage, but I go, oh, blank, there he is. And how this turkey just walked in with me moving my arms, pointing at different things, and just he stepped out in kind of the opening and saw my last hand movement, and then he was like, oh, there's something over there. But he just stood there looking. He wasn't sure where I was. I had a good setup in the shadows and stuff. In most situations, I would have just brought the gun up and shot him. But I've gotten to the point now that I want to get footage.
Yeah.
If it means sacrificing a bird. It was the first morning of hunting there. So I took the chance and I reached up. The viewfinder on my camcorder's, turned 180 facing me so I can see myself to make sure I got it centered on me when I'm talking. I reach up there, I spin it over, I grab the handle of the tripod where the remote is. And about that time, he can't really see my hand because it's behind the tripod and it has the burlap. And I grab the handle and start swiveling, and he starts putting. Now he's like, something ain't right here. But he just starts walking, continuing the direction he was walking, basically walking straight out in front of me. And I wheel the camera around. He kind of picks up the pace of his putting just a little bit and starts to walk a little faster. I get the camera pointed at him. I zoom in just a little bit, and he steps behind a tree in his, progress of walking. As soon as he does, I come up with the gun. He steps out, and I blast him. And so it was amazing that, and I was so shocked that it all was. I was able to pull it off. I even say that it's like, how did he just stand there and let me do that? But it was cool. All of it was caught on footage, on video. And the 360 camera I had, I think it caught the turkey flying, soaring right by me and going to the road. But when he gobbled out there in the field, it wasn't him. It was the gobbler. It was across coming towards me. And when he pitched down, I thought that was him. He'd actually just pitched down off to my left and started walking back in. And I let my guard down. Well, so I got my bird, got some good footage. And while I'm doing the wrap up interview, that other gobbler that had been hearing me that morning walked into the woods also. And I had to just sit there beside the tree. I hurry up and sat back down after I was, got my bird up and was filling the tag out. And he come into the woods, and I bet he was 40 or 50 yards from me, just gobbling his head off. And I've got the camera rolling. And I'm like, man, if I had another tag, this bird would be easy to come in, to call in to kill. But it was just a crazy hunt. So that and there, I'm sure I've got more memorable hunts than that. But that one there is just fresh in my mind because I'm editing that video currently. So
right,
long story, but I think it was a fun hunt.
No, that's awesome, man. That is a crazy story. I mean, I can think of a couple kind of similar to that, but they didn't turn out quite as well as yours did.
I was just thankful that he allowed me to get the camera on him. I didn't know what that little action camera was seeing. In hindsight, reviewing the footage, it would have been acceptable just to show that footage as the hunt, because it got him pretty good. It was in 4K mode, so it was good footage. But
Yeah.
just the fact that he let me pull all that off. In most cases, it never happens that way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
unreal, man.
No, that's awesome. That's going to be great because now they can listen to it here. Then they can head over to your channel and they can go watch it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
I look
just
forward to it.
remember how you're envisioning it right now, and see if
Mhm.
my story lines up with how you envisioned it when you actually see the hunt.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man.
Sounds good. Will do.
All right, Shane, before we let you go, here's your opportunity to shine, man. Let everybody know where they can find you. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all your fun places.
Okay, so my videos are all hosted over at YouTube. Shane Simpson, just that'll be one of the first search results typically, especially if you like type in Shane Simpson hunting. That's where you'll find all my turkey hunting and deer hunting and deer tracking. I'm on Instagram at Shane_Simpson_hunting. Facebook, Shane Simpson. Calling on Turkeys is on Facebook. I have a TikTok account. I guess just my username, Simp Zenith, over there. And my website, callingallturkeys.com. My videos are hosted over there too. I just kind of embed the links. There's a lot of turkey and owl and other animal vocalizations and videos. So if you want to practice your pileated woodpecker, I have some of that on there. Some barred owl, jake yelping, hen yelping video. A lot of videos, some audio clips. And then I sell my turkey calls over there too. So if y'all want to help out and buy a couple turkey calls, head on over there for that. So that's about it.
That's awesome, man. We really appreciate you taking time out of your night, coming on, telling us some good stories, giving us some good information, man. It's awesome. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, and anyone out there that order turkey calls from me and they're late arriving, you can thank these guys. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll take blame. I'll be selfish. That's okay.
No, I've got the last batch that's going in the mail in the morning, so I'm all caught up. It's been a blessing to have all the orders here lately with turkey season about here, but it has been hectic. But appreciate you guys having me on. And enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. I'll have to reach out and get a couple myself as well. And hey, good luck this season, man. I hope you I hope you kill at least one, if not two, in every state. How about that?
If I kill one in every state, that would be super. But
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it will be.
Well, best of luck to you, Shane. Thanks again, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.